Hi folks, and welcome back to Math with Captain Rod. I'm making this video here to provide an example of how to try to determine an equation for a trigonometric looking graph, or at least for graphs that look like sine or cosine waves. So the first thing is this is number, what did I say, 64? 64 out of our textbook here. I did a quick sketch as best I could in 20 seconds or less. And the first thing is you have to recognize it as being either a sine or a cosine wave. Now, it turns out that this waveform actually can be expressed as a sine function or a cosine function. However, at this point in the class we're in, we're going to take what I'll call the easiest route at this point. A sine function will be the easiest to fit this so that we don't have to worry about any shifting left or right, and we'll save that for another time. So you start by writing out kind of a generic sine function here. Y equals a number. I just put a sine of a number times x. And the big question is, can we figure out a and can we figure out the b? And the reason we're using sine instead of cosine is because this goes through 0, 0. Had this went through 0, negative 2 or 0, 2, we would have started with a cosine wave or a cosine function. Now, the amplitude of this animal is 2. And furthermore, this is a reflected sine wave. A standard sine wave would have looked like this. So I'm going to say, let's start with a equals negative 2 and update our equation here. So y equals negative 2 sine of bx. Now we're going to want to get the b. So we can actually use a whole bunch of points on this graph. We could, it just needs to be a known point. Well, the x value here we know to be 1, here 2, here 3. I'm going to go ahead and use this one. For no other reason, I like to use one complete period. So at this point right here, we know that x is equal to 4. I'm reading that right off the graph. And this is equal to 2 pi at this location. So what we have is that b times 4 is equal to 2 pi. So b is equal to pi over 2 by the time we divide the 2 out. So y equals negative 2 sine of pi over 2 times x should fit this graph. So the way you try to find a function for these graphs is first decide on a sine or a cosine. If it goes through 0, 0, start with a sine function. If it goes through either of these points here or here, you start with a cosine function. Then write kind of a generic equation for it, like y equals a sine of bx. Or if you were looking for a cosine function, y equals a cosine bx. Then the a will be the amplitude on either side. If it's reflected, you would use a minus a. And then you get the b by looking at a point on the graph. I like to use one complete cycle and setting whatever this is equal to 2 pi, and that's how these things are done. So I hope that gives a reasonable explanation of how to find these equations. Have a great day.